I don't think I've ever felt Toriyama's loss quite so acutely as I did when watching the brand new opening and ending from Dragon Ball Daima. There's a real whimsical quality to the former that morphs into action, and finally the ending conveys a sense of adventure and a feeling that Dragon Ball is eternal. That feather motif is beautiful, a clear reference to Goku's passing in Dragon Ball Z's ending, "We were angels," but here it forms a bird, a representation of Akira Toriyama and Bird Studio, played out over ending lyrics that sing, "I hear it always, your voice in my heart, you know that we're never alone." Akira Toriyama passed away during my hiatus from YouTube, so I'd like to take this opportunity to just say thank you to him and thank you to the anime staff for such a touching and understated tribute. I think he would have liked it. It feels weird to jump into a big happy video after an intro like that, but Dragon Ball's all about pushing forwards with unrelenting optimism, and I sure do have a lot for the content of today's video. This new opening and ending is brought to us from the mind of Aya Komaki, one of the show's 2 series directors that I mentioned last week, and if you saw that video, it should come as no surprise that the one with the biggest strength in visual direction is handling the board and direction for these. I'll be the first to admit my initial reaction was kinda subdued. I'd of course heard the song before and liked it, but I had misguidedly expected visuals that were bombastic and action-packed, and so when it wasn't that from the get-go, I felt a bit deflated. And that's on me, because I'm a fucking moron, but when I watched it again, this time reminding myself that this is a wonderful adventure series, I suddenly realised just how fantastic this thing truly is. There's a running motif of water found here that's used for a transition into an array of character shots bathed in this lovely blue light. It's intercut with a red transition as the characters are animated beautifully across the bottom of the screen, but it's the background that slowly changes colours that really piqued my interest. Komaki's known for her colour work, and it's so great to see that same approach brought over to Daima. I mean, don't get me wrong here, the animation is phenomenally good in this segment. Animating this level of character work is so hard, and much like I praised the last episode's main content, you really get a sense of everyone's character here. Goku being a goober, Pansy being the funny sister, and naturally Bulma's there pestering the calm and cool Glorio. Of course, it has to culminate with the main duo duking it out with rock, paper, scissors. Sorry, little gremlin vegetable, Goku still won. I think one of my favourites from the following shots is of the main villains. The main trio are drenched in this red to yellow gradient, with Dabra and Abra in the background sporting deep blues. It works super well both visually and thematically with the jump to the dilating eye in the sky, the thing that ties these two groups together. Keep an eye out for those cool colour shifts once we get into the action, but for now, we need to touch on the fantastic animators behind this piece. This opening is supervised by the one and only Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru, the character designer for this series and longtime Dragon Ball superstar, so good at replicating Toriyama that even the man himself would often confuse their pieces. With a couple of exceptions, like the close-up of Kid Goku or the rotating adult version that are straight out of the mid-2000s Nakatsuru playbook, this opening is mostly faithful to the character sheets from the show. It feels pretty congruent with the main episode content, and that might sound like a stupid thing to say, like, yeah, no shit, the character designer draws like the character designs, but the reason I say this is because those character sheets are very reflective of Toriyama's style across the 5 years or so prior to his passing. But on the flip side, the ending that's also boarded and directed by Komaki is actually solo animated by Nakatsuru, and unlike this opening, it does not even remotely adhere to the sheets. And that's not a bad thing, this is some of my all-time favourite Dragon Ball art from the show thus far, but in these super fun GT homages is Nakatsuru's personal Dragon Ball style shining through. The proportions, the head shapes, the tiny eyes, the long legs, this is pure and unfiltered Nakatsuru, and it is so crazy to see just how little that man's style has changed in 20 years. Unlike others, he has not lost his touch in any way, and I could not be more blown away. I adore this ending through and through. Absolutely no notes. If you'll forgive that little detour to the ending, we can jump back to the opening where the action kicks in, and after what looks like a quick little snort from Takumi Yamamoto, it kicks in a big way with Ryo Onishi. If you have somehow forgotten this man, this is the beast who animated 5 whole minutes of non-stop insane action in Dragon Ball Super Broly, who single-handedly made Super Saiyan Bardock not shit, and who just shows up all the competition whenever he appears on the series. His scene here is only 5 seconds long, and yet it contains by far the most insane and complex action of this entire opening. The layering of all these characters, the hand-drawn vehicles, all thrown together with those iconic wibbly-wobbly smears he loves to do. This is a fucking war zone in the space of 5 seconds, and I love it. Hilariously, it's followed up by half a second of half-corrected Yamamuro, but I see your old hair there, Mr. Yam. That is seared into my eyes from Super. Dragon Ball mega fan Shun Sawai does Glorio and Pansy's little gun moment just after, and then it's over to Hiromi Ishigami. That is not a name I expect many Dragon Ball fans will know, because her only contribution to this franchise was 11 years ago with the final scene of Battle of Gods, where she somehow made Yamamuro's designs move with some sense of fluidity. But she is a phenomenal animator who's worked on everything from Naruto to Wolf Children to One Piece, where the latter there has really shown her strengths. Her first contribution to this opening is that exceptionally consistent Goku rotation with the feathers, and the last one here is this Piccolo and Vegeta power-up that's less than a second long but has the sickest impact frames. Who said kids can't be dramatic? Look at that Vegeta face. It might seem weird to have built up Ishigami like this for what is quite a small contribution, but I can tell you that is for good reason. We are very blessed to have her doing far more than you might expect later in this series. After her looks to be Isamu Takara's work with Gomar's crazy spellcasting. You can usually spot him for his cool wispy effects work. He's always got these little hatching lines alongside stuff. It was the same in his Goku vs Vegeta fight in DBS Broly. They're just small wind effects there, but the same kind of hatching is on display once again. And if that wasn't enough, the huge action scenes culminate with Ken Otsuka. His Dragon Ball animation is so recognizable. Just the way he poses characters and uses such intense action lines. If you cast your minds back to his scene in Dragon Ball Super's second opening, it had the same energy, the same cool posing, excellent action lines, blistering flurries. That's Ken Otsuka Dragon Ball for you, and it is great. And finally, at the end of all of this, it looks like Yuya Takahashi is here with one hell of a Kamehameha to close out this opening. That fire effect that billows out and dissipates as it goes out of focus is so good, and the effect shapes are really unique for a Kamehameha. With the 3-tone shading and the great photography work, it is a powerful statement and a great closer to Kamaki's fantastic opening. Oh god, I'm exhausted. I've not even touched on the episode yet.
Get back to work! I said get back to work, blood! Get back to work!
Okay. Thankfully, it is a little more subdued than last week, but we still have a lot to cover. Carrying on from last week is co-series director Yoshitaka Yashima taking on the storyboard once again, and I can't help but feel that this was meant to be a back-to-back episode, given he's done 2 boards in a row now, and the end of the last episode just felt really weirdly abrupt. Unfortunately, unlike last week where I praised his board for having nice ideas and laying out dialogue scenes well, I have to say it's not great here. Much of the first half is marred by a lot of very flat storyboarding. It reminds me a lot of how many Western cartoons are often boarded, where it almost looks like you're looking at a stage, a flat plane where characters just kind of stand next to one another. You don't really get too much variation outside of the odd 3/4 angle or establishing shot. The second half is better. Some of that nice layering from episode 1 does come back. There are some fine environmental cutaways, and there's an okay idea here and there, like the fun Roshi stuff and the Nioibo shooting across the table, but on the whole, it's just a little bit paint by numbers. In spite of that, I really enjoyed this episode, maybe even more than episode 1 in fact, and I think that's in part because it's very well written, but I think it's also that Kazuya Kurosawa's direction is very good. If you're not aware, that man was the series director of Dragon Quest Dai, and put together some really cool stuff, including storyboarding the fantastic Vegeta part of the fight in DBS Broly. It can be hard to quantify direction in an episode like this where things are quite low-key, but the timing of the comedy, the music choices, the way time of day is conveyed, these are all directorial touches that often go unappreciated in anime, but I thought it was well done here. Kurosawa is not the only connection to the Dragon Quest Dai anime though. The animation director for this episode is Naoko Yamaoka. Although she is predominantly a pure animation director, she was a chief AD across Dai, and given that Daima is essentially Dai 2.0 in terms of staff involved, it shouldn't come as a surprise that she is here too. Truth be told, I'm not super big on her art style. I think her lack of familiarity with Dragon Ball does shine through at times, and having seen seen some of her corrections from later in the series, I do stand by that, but unlike in Dragon Ball Super, or even Z for that matter, where not liking an AD's style meant the episode was a bit of a wash, this brings us back around to the emphasis on the chief AD role this time. Yuya Takahashi is at the head of the hierarchy for this episode's visuals, and as a result, things largely look really nice on the whole. His style is pretty close to Nakatsuru's model sheets, so close in fact that there were certain shots where I wondered if it was actually the man himself before I saw the credits at the end. But of course, it is impossible to miss Takahashi when he goes full Takahashi, and that is so clear to see at the end of this episode where the big dramatic three-tone shading starts coming out, or characters start manifesting indented cheek shading like it's the 90s again. He even did some of his own key animation where Goku starts twirling the Niobo like some madman. It has been so fascinating to watch this man evolve from a Naotoshi Shida clone 10 years ago into someone with their own very unique and robust approach to animation. This scene is so much fun. The twirly part has all of these loose blobby smears, and then as soon as Goku extends the pole, they suddenly snap into full rigidity, really selling the power of the thrust. I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say that I am so excited to see him tackle some of the upcoming action. He's not the only great animator here though. Takumi Yamamoto is back once again from episode 1, this time not handling action, but instead handling the greatest character animation of this episode. I mean, God, the delicacy of Krillin standing up here, the hilarious stretch as Goku and Vegeta fall to the ground, that is some real cartoony goodness, and he just keeps going. Goku brushing his hair off is amazing stuff. I love the way the hair is drawn between his fingers in particular. Honestly, this whole early section is just chock full of so much fun, and I wish I knew who did everything. We've got some real big names on board here, like Yuichi Hamano, Yukihiro Urata, Isamu Chikara again, but there's nothing that stands out immediately as their work. The one person I feel pretty confident in being able to identify, however, is Yuichi Kurosawa, who almost certainly does the rotation segment with Glorio and the surrounding scenes. He has such strange robotic timing to the way he animates, and you can really see that with the way the rotation kicks in with absolutely no ease in or out. That is 100% the kind of thing he does, and you can see it even in his Broly work. I had a really good time with this episode in spite of my small criticisms of some of the visuals, and I'm pretty sure I enjoyed it more than the first one. Even though the board wasn't quite up to my expectations and some of the AD work wasn't to my taste, it's the everything else that really excelled. The great animation, the great direction, and of course the debut of these stunning opening and endings. Let me know what you thought of the episode down in the comments section below. Drop a like if you enjoyed this, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you next time.